welcome everybody to NFT MSP 2024. I think it's the first time Minneapolis has brought something like this together. I know we had VCon here a few years ago, but this is the first time an event like this has occurred. And I want to start by thanking our speakers. We have Brandon Ferdig, the president of the Minnesota Blockchain Society. We have Elizabeth Kukka, the CEO of Profit for Purpose, flew all the way in from LA. And we have Chad Jamrozy, who's works for a legal firm, but is just kind of a blockchain advocate and a guy that, frankly, I said, I think you should be on our first panel because you know a lot, and we're trying to keep it a little casual as well. I think one thing about blockchain that we find, at least I found in talking with people, is it mystifies people. Sometimes people get a little intimidated by it, or they don't understand it, or they think it's this new technology that might be something that they can't understand. And if they don't understand technology or computer programming, it might be something that they don't want to engage with. And I think the purpose of really hosting an event like this is to open it up, to make it feel less like, how do I say, less like this big, scary new technology, and really something that everybody can participate in. And there's a word that gets thrown around a lot, web3. I know for a while they were trying to, is it blockchain? Is it crypto? Is it NFTs? What's the word we use for it? And I think web3 is a good one because it kind of, it captures all those, and we'll get into some of that later. But to start, I think we wanted to open this up with the basics of blockchain. And we're speaking right now, I'll tell you right now, we're speaking to a very small audience sitting here live. But as far as who we're actually speaking to, I believe, is to the post-production, to the people that aren't sitting here right now, to the people that maybe have never even heard the term Web3, to the people that have heard the word blockchain and don't understand what it even means. But after tonight, after tomorrow, after Sunday, after the panels and the conversations that are going to take place over the next 3 days, I think we're going to find that the spread of the information and the conversations that do take place organically, especially on these panels, I hope will kind of pull the curtain back on what's easily, in my opinion, the most disruptive technology of the 21st century. It has a way to connect the globe using technology and essentially human ingenuity in a way that I don't believe has ever taken place yet. And with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Brandon of the Minnesota Blockchain Society, who wrote an article in the magazine, in our local Ties magazine. And Brandon is going to speak for himself here. So I'm going to stop talking and let Brandon introduce, maybe start off, Brandon, by talking about what actually is blockchain.
Okay. Well, here's an interesting question. So I'm Brandon Ferdig. I'm president of Minnesota Blockchain Initiative. We are the state's advocacy organization for blockchain technology. So like there's the Minnesota Dairy Council, and there's probably the Minnesota Loggers Society, and there's all these different industry groups for their particular line of work, their career, their field. And we were formed about 5 years ago, had kind of a grand reopening a few years ago, to just kind of unify all the energy around this industry, whether it's an NFT artist, whether it's someone mining Bitcoin, whether it's a Fortune 500 company interested in integrating this technology to manage their data, right? Like there's a lot of confusion around it, and there's a lot of scams, and so we wanted to educate the public. And so at its basic core, like blockchain technology is distributed ledger technology, and you'll hear that DLT. And technically there's non-blockchain DLTs. Like I believe Hedera Hashgraph is not technically a blockchain, but blockchain, and we talked about terminology and trying to find the best term. It's tough, but we use blockchain, clearly it's in our name, and it does a pretty good job of recognizing that this is about transferring data, and that sounds really boring. But this virtual world that we're in, largely virtual. I mean, we're in a real world, but we're also spend a lot of our times on our phones and so forth. And so there's a lot of data being transferred, tons of it, right? Like everything you watch on your phone is data. It's all data. When you see someone, I think about this sometimes when I'm on a Zoom call, like this is a person, but all it is pixels. You know, that's just pixels and noises that come together to manifest that likeness of that person. It's crazy. It's all data. And blockchain is a revolutionary way to send and receive and store data. And when you look at it that fundamentally, then it's like, well, what are the applications? Well, think of what are the applications of the internet? And it's like, well, I don't know, like everything, right? Streaming and banking and shopping and maps and whatever. I mean, it's endless. It's like, yeah, that's kind of like blockchain. Maybe not quite as extensive, but pretty close. And so whether it's art or finance or supply chain or I don't know.
Gaming.
Promotion, retail, like all of this stuff, gaming, yeah. I mean, it's almost as vast. And so I think that's a good starting point for what blockchain is. I mean, there's a technical whole side of it, just like there's a whole technical side of what the internet is, right? Really, how does it work? What's HTTP and what are ISPs and all this stuff that works in the background. Well, blockchain is kind of that background for web3. And so I'm less interested, frankly. I'm not a developer. I started in this because I'm a journalist. I'm a storyteller. I have a YouTube channel, and my other life is like writing about societies and interviewing people. And so from a very high level view, I'm interested in this technology for how much it's going to change the world. And when I learned about Bitcoin, I thought, wow, what would it be like if suddenly money was not synonymous with the country? Like every country has their own money. That's kind of how I generally thought of it, and that's generally true. Go to Cambodia, they have their own money. Go to China, they have their own money. Go to Mexico, they have their own money. Well, what if there was a money that wasn't tied to a country? Like that's crazy because we do so much. So we think so much in terms of money being tied to a country, and so that blew my mind. And that of course is Bitcoin. And I first learned about that in 2013, and then from there it blossomed into. So that's sort of, I mean, I could go into more and more about my story, but that kind of lays a little bit of groundwork for blockchain. And then of course from money, then it went to smart contracts, programmable money, NFTs, and tokenizing things. DAOs, governance on blockchain. Why not? Why don't we vote on chain? That way we can verify if there's any shenanigans going on, right? Like so much can be applied to blockchain, and that's what excites me about it. And that's our job at MN Blockchain, is to promote the integration of blockchain in Minnesota.
And a ton of good points you brought up there, Brandon. I think it's helpful to really get to the simplicity of what the difference between blockchain and how just literally the terminology itself, right? There's blocks and there's a chain. And how is that different from how we store the idea of decentralization, the idea of a public ledger? These are terms that make sense when you hear them, but until you actually think through what they actually mean and how it applies or is analogous to, for example, what we've had prior to it. So how would you describe blockchain now, or how would you describe blockchain, let's say, the Ethereum blockchain versus what a company like Facebook or Google is doing? So we have, and I think the easiest platform to maybe compare them on is the idea of centralized data versus decentralized. So if we say that Google has a bunch of servers, they're private, they're a public company, but they ultimately, all of the searches we do, that's all based on, Google servers, and they own that data, so to speak, and how that data is used. Obviously, we're kind of learning more and more now that Gmail isn't exactly free. Gmail is paid for by the company Google, taking their data, monetizing it through advertising and targeting through demographics. What's different, I think, about blockchain, and I think what helped me understand it the best, and I'm still learning, and that's, I think, a good point we should, at least for me, I'm still a student of it for sure, and I'm not even close to an expert, So there'll be times, I think, throughout this weekend where I know I'm going to explain something poorly, or I might be even wrong about it, and I hope somebody corrects me. But when I understood blockchain, I liked this idea. I think it was described some ways as almost like you have a matrix format of data where you have kind of data that you can, if we were on the blockchain right now with this conversation, or if I should say if we were Google, they could delete this after. This could all get uploaded to their servers, and after this conversation took place, they could delete it, they could package it and put it out only into Santa Barbara, California. They could put it only into Plymouth, Minnesota. They could direct how that information is used, stored, distributed, et cetera, right? With blockchain, you've got a block of data, and as we're speaking here, that data is being filled into a block. And once that block is full of that data, if it's us speaking, that block closes, it moves on to the next one, and it moves on to the next. And it doesn't stop, and it's immutable in the sense, and this isn't for, I guess, all blockchains, but the idea of an immutable form of data where you can't go back and alter it. You can make it anonymous. You can keep it encrypted where other people can't see it. You might have to have token-gated access to be able to look at it, but you can't go back and change it. If you set a blockchain or you write a smart contract.
Yeah, there are just some fundamental attributes to blockchain other than, so the three big ones, right? It's immutable, it's decentralized, and secure or efficient. I should know this. Trustless. Yeah. It's just, it has these properties, and yeah, like the literal term blockchain comes from all of the different. This is where I get in a little bit over my head as well, but it is a block of transactions that get approved by all of the validators, and then that gets pushed through. These are all valid. Boom. And then up comes another one. So there's a chain of these chunks of transactions that get validated. The important part, I think, is that it gets validated by a gazillion people all over the world, right? And there is no centralized point at which it could be taken down. Do you all remember like Napster or Pirate Bay? So you had these decentralized entities. They just weren't decentralized enough, and blockchain enables a more fundamental layer or level of like profound fundamental decentralization, which you really can't stop aside from shutting down the internet, or if a chain is not popular and there's not very many nodes or validators, then feasibly you could find them and then mess with them personally. But with something like Bitcoin, once it's so established and there's 10,000 or 20,000 validators around the world, then it becomes something that's just too distributed.
And trustless, I think that term, just this idea that people are incentivized to not mess with the data, and I don't know that the data I'm validating on essentially a computer I have, right? The proof of work concept of mining is all I'm doing is paying for electricity essentially to have my computer run solve a complex algorithm that says this data is true. Brandon just talked about blockchain. And then there's 100 other ones that say the same thing. And if there's a consensus that everybody agrees in those computers that was true, then that gets set in the block and it continues. And me as a validator, I'm getting a little bit of a reward for that. But I don't know if it was Brandon. I don't know if it was Adam. I don't know who it was that was doing it. And I
there's
think
a lot of anonymity. That could be the other aspect I've missed. But the thing that struck home with me with the idea of being trustless is this. Like, think of an Ethereum smart contract. So Bitcoin was the first data transference on a blockchain. It was money. So I'm going to send you this Bitcoin and you're going to give me this item or whatever. It was a financial transaction using Bitcoin as the medium. Ethereum came around a few years later and said, well, what if we put some like rules or stipulations on the transaction? Like I will give you this money, but I'll give it to you once a week or every first of the month for my rent or whatever the case is. So it was programmable money. And Ethereum is quite you can program it quite extensively. And so where the trustless part comes in is that I don't have to rely on someone else to deliver this money or give me what they said they were going to give me for me giving them the money. It's all automated, so it removes any like need for trust. You might hear the word trustless and think, well, that's not good. Trust is a good thing. Yeah, it is. What's also a good thing is when you don't have to rely on it. It's great, but what if we don't have, because you're buying stuff from a stranger online, it's trustless, or you have some agreement with someone online. The automation of these financial transactions are what just sort of remove that need for trust, and that just makes it much more safe. But we can talk about a couple of specific. I'm more of a kind of a high level guy. I look at all these different aspects of how blockchain is changing things. But we have two here who are involved with tokenization and NFTs that can, I think, dig a little deeper into those particular areas. And in those more specific instances, you can see it from a whole new angle and understand it better. So perhaps they'd like to introduce themselves and their use of blockchain.
You want to go back and forth on mine? Yeah. No, I think Liz, I think it would be interesting to hear what Profit for Purpose does, and introduce this concept of a DAO, because I know Brandon brought it up before, and what a DAO stands for and kind of what you are doing.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Liz Kukka, CEO at Purpose for Profit. And so many threads were touched on that we could go and talk about for hours, each one of them. So to start, why I became interested in blockchain was really because of data privacy and data ownership. And so I'd say probably back in 2008, 2009, I already started to notice that my data was being used. I was being monetized because advertisements were coming my way through social media even way back then. And so I became very concerned like quite a while ago about my data privacy. Like, okay, so someone's watching what I'm doing, they're repackaging it, and they're selling things back to me. I don't like that. How do I make it so that I can have some control over my data? Either choose to make it private, or I own it, and therefore I can sell it if I want to, because it's my data, it's my information. And so that's one reason that I got into it. A second one is peer-to-peer. So if I give you $20 in cash, why can't I digitally give you $20 without there being a middle person who takes a transaction fee along the way and who's also monitoring everything that we do? And so peer-to-peer is another reason I got excited about it. And then the third is I really think about blockchain as like a co-op 2.0 or a digital co-op where we have, and that's where the DAOs come in. So there's this ability for us to collectively co-direct or co-own businesses, projects, based on kind of not exactly a meritocracy, but sort of where you're paid based on your work and what you're contributing to the ecosystem or to the network. And so for all of those reasons and many, many more, we talked about censorship resistance, we talked about immutability and all of these other terms that no one in this audience probably cares about, but all of those reasons to me are very important. So a bit about Purpose for Profit. So we're a tokenized charitable fund. We're just getting started. Our goal is to raise this fund to provide low-interest loans to businesses building affordable housing. We're a 501c3, and so we take donations. We have an exempt security. So security is just like a stock that you would buy on the open market. So we have that. And then a third way is an impact investor route, where folks can put money in, get 5% back, 5% APY back, and you're doing good. You're helping fund affordable housing. Where the blockchain plays a part in this, and when you can listen to this example and think, how else could we use this technology for good? All of the loans dispersed are on chain. All of those loans are packaged as an NFT. So if you were to purchase one of these loans and take a position where you can earn interest, you could sell it to somebody, the NFT, yourself, instead of having to go through another institution. You can do it yourself. Right, that's your property, that's your investment. You can sell it yourself and be done with it. So it's one example of how blockchain has like a lot of real world use, and that we could be using it to empower ourselves, empower each other, empower communities, and do good.
And you said DAO, just to define it, so decentralized autonomous organization. It's a mouthful.
Yep.
What, maybe touch on that a little more, I think.
Yeah, so decentralized autonomous organization, I think decentralized is probably, for me, is usually enough, because the rest of it just starts to have lots of implications and people think of it in different ways. But to be decentralized means that we're not co-located in one place. We could be all over the world. We could be doing those things that Brandon and Chris mentioned, where we're validating transactions, but we don't have to actually know each other, and we're helping run the organization together, but there's not a central owner. And so it's a new business model where we're collectively moving something forward together with hard-coded rules on why you get paid and when. And it's automated payments. So for example, when I just mentioned that NFT piece, we can hard code in payment schedules so that payments are automatically going to you. I don't have to manage that anymore. It's on March 1st, April 1st, whatever. It's all hard coded in, so you're getting your interest because it's hard coded into that NFT, and those payments come in. As soon as we get paid from say like a construction build site, money comes in and automatically flows out. You don't have to worry if we're gonna give you your money or not. It's just automatically programmed in. And so with decentralization, it really enables us to kind of collectively monitor what's happening together, instead of there being a central point of failure or one person who's blocking or controlling everything. That's really the goal. It's like, how do we collectively make decisions and do this together instead of it being so hierarchical or so top down, or some person on top who's making all the money and the rest of us are getting breadcrumbs. How do we flatten it a little bit more? And that's part of what it helps do.
For sure, and I think that's, and when you say flatten too, it's not saying everybody's equal. It's saying it's value for value, I think is the term. What you put in, you're going to get back out, and everybody can see that. So it keeps things transparent, but it also allows for people to, be able to see what other people are putting in and not have this question of, well, who's doing more work, who's putting in more money, you can, like you said, you can take your product and you can bring it to somebody else. An NFT, you can sell it to somebody else and say, I don't want anything to do with this. I think it's worth this now. You think it's worth that. And now that person owns that membership, or owns that piece that is now theirs to do with. And I think the key too is that it's being validated on the blockchain, and that I think is, and I'm going to touch over to Chad here in a sec, but I think that's a really central piece of this whole thing, is this idea that up until this point, we've needed a centralized authority to say, if I give you $10, my Chase bank says, my $10 is no longer in Chris's bank account, it's now in Liz's bank account, and I can't just digitally copy that money and double spend and say it's there and it's not. You need a central authority to say, yep, that transaction's occurred. We don't need that central authority anymore. We have the blockchain that's validating that. Without that, and without that central authority, that really opens up many possibilities to say, well, if we don't need that central authority anymore, but we still all trust it, now things open up in a way that we're here. So what do you think? What do you think, Jeff?
Oh, it all sounds good. I'm actually very interested to hear more. Like, just met Liz tonight. A common, complaint or concern that people bring up that are not involved in crypto or blockchain is this necessary, right? What is it doing? What is the use case, right? It's always this question of, well, what is a real use case? And I think you just really described something that was pretty fascinating on where this can go. Another kind of meme or trope in the crypto world is always like, it's early. We're early, right? And it really still feels like that even after all this time. I think a lot of people in this room have probably been around for quite some time. I've been an enthusiast or a hobbyist in this probably since 2017 and seen a number of different cycles. And in lots of ways, it still feels early. We're going through these different cycles. Real quick, I just want to say thanks, Chris. This is took a lot to put an event together and to have something here in Minneapolis. I'm from here, live here, and run some businesses here, and selfishly being involved in crypto and NFT and everything else, to have something in Minnesota is very special. You always look to the Nashvilles and the Austins and LA and in the places around the world that have the events, hoping that something like this will take off here in Minneapolis and fly over country. There's a lot of people very, very passionate about this space, and there's a lot of good things happening here. So I think it's cool.
Well, and I think I'm born and raised Minnesota. I know there's a lot of us in the audience here, and I think Minnesotans, we see the star of the North. I think we all have a lot of pride in Minnesota. I think people don't realize how many Fortune 500 companies we have up here. People don't realize the education system we have, the quality of life, health. You look at the boxes on best cities in the world deliver, best areas. Minnesota hits them all. But then we've got Violeta Zeroni here. We've got Drew coming out from Arizona. I mean, people are starting to, we convince people to come here, and whether or not we have 2,000, 3,000 people show up at this, or we have 200, and I've said this since the beginning, and we did put this together on a shoestring budget in a very quick amount of time, but it's these panels, and it's getting people together, and when you're trying to effectively onboard and bring in a technology that is as disruptive as I think it is, and frankly does have a lot of people that are ignorant to it, a lot of people that don't care, apathetic, and there's a lot of people that do care, do understand it, and frankly don't want it because they understand very well the implications of what it can have, and the disruptive nature of something like this is big enough, as Brandon was talking about these different countries and currencies, and just this concept. I had never heard the term fiat before until I got into crypto. What is fiat? Oh, that's fiat currency. And it's like, well, what is that? Well, fiat is basically just a currency that is backed by a specific government. So, so the yuan or the rupee or the U.S. dollar. So just that term alone for me started to open up an idea of saying, this isn't just I can get it's 10 times my dollar's worth when I travel to a third world country with the U.S. dollar, and I can get a really cheap drink there. Like, that's how I understood currencies for a while. Or there's or you hear about Warren Buffett and arbitrage, and there's that level of it. But then when you start to actually dig in and say, well, what is the purpose of all that? Where does a country's value come from? How do you actually gauge a citizen's worth of that country based on if somebody pounds the other house, paints a house, puts farms the land? Why is that person's value worth difference in that country versus our country versus that country, right? And those are the kind of things I think that when you really look deep into crypto or blockchain, whatever you want to call it, Web3, you start to say, okay, that's interesting, because now I can actually send money that's decentralized, that has no person in the middle saying, I'm going to show you how I want this to be worth to this person on the other side. You can send it directly to that person. That person can take that value, and you're paying a very small gas fee or a fee to get to that person. That now has person to person. And then you start to look at the world and say, are we actually people, or are we actually have we been looking at the world through the lens of the geopolitical governments that have been telling you how that country is and who those people are and how we actually view status and labor and just frankly just the value of anything that a human can produce, whether it's a service or a product. And so I'm going on a tangent here, but back to you.
Yeah, you touched quite a bit there. To that point, what will be fascinating in one of the use cases, there's something called stable coins, right? These are coins pegged traditionally to the U.S. dollar, but when you talk about different countries around the world who are dealing with their hyperinflation, censorship,
Argentina's a big one.
Yeah, huge, right? And so the idea of being able for people to possibly take some of their income and their wealth and put that into stable coins to kind of give it some stability, literally. Or remittance, right? And the other one use case here, the remittance here. You hear about the fees. This would probably touch a little bit on what Liz is talking about with payments. The common complaint that people have, when they have family overseas, right? A major use case of using blockchain or crypto is the remittance, being able to send money for low fees anywhere in the world, right? It's a really big deal.
It is. I mean, when I read, and I think I might be wrong, 4 inflationary crises in Argentina in the last how long? And I think in the U.S., despite our inflation problems we're having now, I don't think we have yet to experience the level of inflation that a country when one day, your $10 bill can buy 5 chickens, and the next day, it takes $10,000 to buy that same amount. And how in the hell that can actually even be possible for that to be even like allowed to happen, and much less the powerlessness somebody living in that country would feel. I mean, we always say we live in a privileged society. You start to look at those things, you start to look at the problems we have, and then you say, what does that look like? That person's now worked their whole life, and because of choices of a government based on potentially a geopolitical trade deal with another country, or, don't need to get into too much stuff, but this idea that inflation, so now I'm the guy who's working for his family, and I say, you know what, I've got an internet connection, and I've got a wallet, and there's this thing called Bitcoin, and I don't care if it's worth $10,000 or $50,000, at least I know it's worth what the rest of the world knows it's worth or agrees it's worth. And so at least I'm on the same team with everybody else, and it's not this team of this person in this country that I live in that I have really no control over. And to me, that gives a level of fairness, or at least hope of being able to invest in something that, again, you're not kind of sequestered into the limitations of whatever government is leading you. And that, I think, to Liz's point, I think you talking about kind of how profit for purpose works in a country like the US, where we do have a lot of wealth, and how profit for purpose can work for, we'll call it the new age of nonprofits, because as we all know, nonprofits are not always just nonprofits. It's just a tax status for a corporation, and there's good things that nonprofits do, and there's good things that for-profits do. But I think what you do at I'm gonna keep flipping it. Purpose for profit. I get it mixed up. I think touching on that, I think a little more like a conversation the other night would be helpful.
No?
Yeah. Talk,
Okay.
yeah. Talk it up.
Where to start? I mean, you touched on a lot of, I think, really important bits and pieces before diving into we call it purpose for short. But you mentioned like this concept of we can create economies, our own economies essentially, that are borderless or that are digital. I think something to keep in mind, even though I'm a full fan of that 100%, and it is unfortunate that we're like property of the country which we reside in, right? So like if the government can dictate how my money is moving, it seems pretty unfair to me. But anyway, none of us are probably going to escape that. That's like the first part. So I mean, if you figure it out, let me know. But the second piece is that when in creating your own economy or a new economy, you're probably going to have to participate in both. And so I just like want to preface that like, yes, we can create new systems, and those new systems of change might happen past my lifetime, but I think it's worth trying. But also knowing that you're also probably going to have to participate in the old world model also for quite a while. Mm-hmm. What am I supposed to share with you about purpose?
Well, I just think the idea of how people investing money. So like if I go and invest money in Brazil, and I'm investing in or I'm investing in the Thai baht or something, and I'm doing that because I think that the value of that currency right now is undervalued based on the GDP of that country. And that to me is, we'll call it old school. How does somebody taking a US dollar or the Japanese yen or something into purpose for profit, how is that different than investing in, let's say, another country's currency, or just investing in a nonprofit in general, or anything, sponsoring a nonprofit, right? Like, what does that give back to me besides a tax break? Yeah,
so as a donor, you would get a tax break. As a token holder, it's speculative. I think the best benefit would really be as an impact investor, where you're getting that 5% APY. That's probably the best. And I think the transparency piece is key, that you can see the loans on chain, you can see payments made on chain, but you have the anonymity where no one knows it's you per se, but you can see it's called a hash. And so the hash is like the transaction, and it's, 20 numbers and letters long. It's very long. And so no one knows, and it's very anonymous. And so you can see that it happened. You can verify it yourself or share it with somebody else to verify that you did get this payment. And so the transparency piece is really key for us. And then the peer-to-peer part is also key. That if you have that NFT loan that I mentioned before, you can sell it to somebody else, and you don't need our permission to do that because that's your property. And so you should be able to transact with whomever you'd like to sell that to, if that's what you'd want to do. I think that's pretty important for us. Another piece is that you don't have to use a bank, which people might have different opinions about being banked or unbanked. But if you have $10,000 sitting in what would be called a MetaMask wallet or a Coinbase wallet or whatever digital wallet you used, you can transact that way. You don't have to route it through JP Morgan Chase or through a local, I do love local banks because it's the local economy, but you don't have to do it that way if you don't want to. And it doesn't mean you're doing anything illegal at all. You're still paying taxes if that's, what you do. And so you're still following the rules. You're just removing that middle layer, that middle institution that's tracking what you're doing and taking a cut. That's really something else that it enables.
Let's jump to NFTs, and I wanted you
the fun stuff.
The fun stuff, the fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear a little bit more about the gaming. I don't know as much about gaming NFTs, and I think we've got
that's
people in the
tomorrow.
audience who were well versed in that and immersed in that industry. But I will tell a little bit of my personal journey. It was a little bit of my love and my interest in crypto and it was NFT. I remember I don't know if people here, it looks like we probably have a few old OGs in here who have been around for a bit, but that NFT kind of explosion in 1920, 21, I had been around for that first run up in 2017, which was kind of the token time, right? That was like everyone was buying all the different tokens, all the ICOs that came out on Ethereum, and it was a very speculative time in a huge bubble that burst. And then the next kind of wave of interest kind of came when the ERC20 token was kind of
when you say ICO, initial
coin offering,
which is similar to an IPO.
Right. You remember? Yeah, I kind of glossed over that.
Yeah, no,
that was like it was a wild west, right? Everybody and their brother and celebrities were putting out coins, and it was it was all pump and dump schemes and stuff. And a little bit of what Brandon was touched on earlier was, it had gotten quite a vibe, and a real scammy vibe, right? And there was a lot of projects out there. I would imagine lots of those tokens probably still exist, but there's thousands of different blockchains, right? And coins out there and tokens, but that had kind of sputtered. We had that next bear phase, and then the NFT thing kind of came up, and that was, I remember kind of coming back and seeing it. I don't remember if anybody here knows Kevin Rose was a guy who he started Dig and sold that and made a bunch of money, and he had a podcast called Future Proof, I think it was what it was called. Is that right? Yeah. I remember I was listening to him, and he was interviewing all these people. This was kind of like real OG stuff, CryptoPunks and early stuff on ETH, and it was real fascinating. And he had all these guests on, and I was like, well, what is this all about? And it's like you can buy these little pieces of art, with this crypto, and it was real fascinating. So I would spend weekly listening to his podcast, and then eventually it just started kind of to branch out. Like, well, how would I get involved? Some of the projects that he was discussing were out of my price range, and it was on ETH, and it was like, oh wow, remember the gas wars and all that? The gas fees on top of that were really expensive. So Solana had just come out, and there was a lot of buzz around Solana for speed and for the cheap transaction fees, kind of a nicer UI, and it was easy. So I started playing around with the Solana ecosystem. And I remember I bought my first NFT there and got involved in some Twitter and Discord channels and all that kind of stuff. And if I finally got one, I was like, well, that was kind of exciting, and that kind of got things going. Eventually, I worked my way to Tezos, which is where I ended up spending a lot of time doing collecting, which was a little bit more art focused, but it was this community of people putting stuff online to be able to buy, in a way to connect with them in a way that I don't know, that was very, very new.
It was kind of like your tribe, right? And I think, and I want to tag Brandon in here over, because we're talking about, you mentioned Solana, you mentioned Ethereum, you mentioned Tezos.
Yeah.
I think Brandon, it would be good as the journalist, as the president of the Minnesota Blockchain Society, which right now is a small membership, but I think should be tripling and quadrupling here very soon, because they're the guys in the nonprofit space in the state of Minnesota that really are breaking things. And the few meetings I've attended, the topics are amazing, and I think it's a good point to actually have you talk a little bit about what these different chains are, because again, I think as crypto people right now, we can get lost in using these terms, But what is the difference, for example, between a Solana versus an Ethereum versus a Bitcoin versus a Tezos? And there can be NFTs on all of them, right? But what does that really mean? I know we've got games now that are on different chains.
Well, you know how those three aspects of blockchain that I mentioned earlier, right? Immutable, secure, fast, and anonymous, 3 or 4 aspects. But there's this trade-off between the 3 or 4 of them, right? Like, if you have way more nodes, then you're going to be more secure, but then it might take longer to get everyone to agree, right? Whereas if you have 2 nodes or 3, let's say you have 3 nodes, you only need 2 of the 3. Oh, that's quick. That's great. We can get to. But how secure is that? All you got to do is, like, you know, control 2 of the 3, and then you've got the whole chain. So basically, Bitcoin came out, and it's pokey, right? It's pokey. If you just do a normal Bitcoin transaction, there'll be a fee that's maybe not cheaper than a credit card, and that was like, hey, these fees are supposed to be cheaper than credit cards. What's going on? That's especially the case on Ethereum. But it's really secure, right? So there's trade-off. So other chains came out, right? And Ethereum was the first programmable money, but it too was pokey, especially when it got popular. And then it would take minutes for a transaction to occur. And I've literally paid $100 for a transaction before, like, because I'm like, oh, I want that meme coin. It's gonna go way up.
But Brandon, maybe you could speak to that a little bit, because that is a fluid situation with the gas fees.
I'd rather not. No,
yeah. It was such an interesting dynamic. Remember when all that, like, I was talking about the gas wars, when something was really popular.
Let's talk about greed.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what you're referring to,
It's it's one of the
Crazy.
deadly sins.
Yeah.
the trilemma, right?
Yeah.
So security, scalability. And
Well, other look, Ethereum bogged down because it got super popular. Good for it. It's a good problem to have, but it was slow, and it was expensive, very expensive, absurdly, comically expensive. Okay. Well, then Solana came out and was like, well, I don't. This isn't the exact order. I'm sure there was ones before Solana, but that's like the next. That's like the big one now, where it's like, oh, we're going to be lickety split. Yeah, but you are. But Solana has also had downtime where it's literally not worked for hours, right? And so it's like, okay, how reliable are you? Yeah, you're fast, but so there's always a trade-off, and they're always trying. And plus, there's a huge amount of financial incentive, huge. Like the founders of these chains that have taken off, Cardano, Solana, Ethereum, they've got 9 figures or 8 figures. I mean, they are absurdly rich. So if you can start a chain that gets popular, there you go, right? Unless you're like some extraordinarily generous person that is like, no, I'm just doing it for the tech and for the world. Now let's get real. You know, the people who really bought into Solana, into Cardano, into Ethereum, they're loaded, and some of them are public about it. Like Mike Novgoratz, he bought Ethereum for like
Galaxy.
a nickel.
Yeah, well, and some
know,
of them are in jail, actually. I
something
think
like that.
SBF might be one of the big Solana guys.
But hey, you know what? I bought Ethereum for $7. Now, I sold it all like a dummy, but, you know, it's not like these opportunities aren't there to make money. Like, I know some guy who bought Solana for 53 cents, and now it's worth 140 or 150. So they're there. Bitcoin, when I first got into it, was a couple $100. Again, I sold it all like a dummy, but I'm not an investor. I'm an observer.
Well, and
there's that greed thing again.
Well,
and
right.
fear, the other side of the greed thing. Oh, it's going down. It's done. I thought that in 2014, so I sold all my Bitcoin. That's true. It's true. I bought it for like 200. I watched it go up to like 1,200, and I'm like, oh, I need some more Bitcoin. And I remember, like, I went to my friend Kyle who told me about it. I'm like, Kyle, can I like just give you cash for some Bitcoin? I was just like, I was jonesing. I was jonesing, man. He was my dealer for Bitcoin. It's crazy. And like, if I didn't buy it like the day I wanted to buy it from him, and then it went up $100 the next day, I was like, oh, I lost $100. I didn't lose anything. I didn't buy into it. What are you talking about? But that, yeah, there's a whole. They should have a market.
Gamblers.
We could do a panel on market and investing psychology. It is fascinating, and it's crazy how you even know you're making the mistake. It's just like addiction. It's like, oh, I know I shouldn't do this, but fuck it, you know, whatever. It's crazy. Excuse my language. Where was I? Oh yeah, the different chains. So there's a lot of different blockchains out there. So few of them have really caught fire.
It's like users.
And like I don't know if this is where you want me to go with it, but the theory in the long term is that each of these will be sort of its own new version of what we know now as a nation state, right? So right now, I'm an American, I'm a German, I'm a Thai person, I'm a Malaysian. It's all about where you live, and in some cases, your ethnicity. In the U.S., it's not tied to your ethnicity; it's just where you're born. Well, a network state is, well, I'm a citizen of Solana or Cardano or Ethereum. That's a whole other conversation, but I love those kinds of conversations because I see all of these technologies, the internet, blockchain, AI, as totally disrupting the way in which we organize societies. Laws can't keep up. You talk to most politicians about this, and they don't know what they're talking about. It's like, where's this all going? And we're going to online, man. We're going to virtual. We're going to at least some kind of blend of the two, some other kind of jurisdiction that will have this baked into it so that it can work at the speed and the convenience of what blockchain enables.
Right, and I think it'll take a natural course. I mean, Solana came along. It was so the trilemma, right? You've got one is more decentralized than the other. You can't have something that's completely decentralized, completely secure, and super fast. So Ethereum has always been the king of decentralization, right? So that's I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was
people on the live stream donating sats would very strongly disagree with that.
Strongly disagree.
But
Yeah.
but
Those are all Bitcoin.
but it's more arguably more secure than Solana.
Bitcoin's always the king. But in terms of Solana versus Ethereum or Solana versus Tezos, I know Solana was the fast guys, right? That was Solana's speed on their transactions were fast. I'm sorry, it wasn't decentralization. It was security. It was security with Ethereum. At least that's what I remember from the beginning. It was I misspoke. Yes, it was a security of it that Ethereum was a very secure state, whereas Solana was faster, and during that time, speed mattered. And then I guess with decentralization, with that was Bitcoin Bitcoin's always been
and it has been defined as being sufficiently decentralized, even in the eyes of the SEC, to be considered a commodity versus a security, which is like a whole nebulous and another conversation.
Right.
For a different day.
But Bitcoin was never under threat of being listed as a security, whereas Ethereum.
Yeah, and Ethereum hasn't been designated that, but it looks like it's very close to being kind of sufficiently decentralized to be able to qualify as commodities. Is kind of the whole
they're making it
ETF that came out recently. All these kind of developments are really helping it move that along. But
I don't even know where NFTs. So what does an NFT mean? I think for me that's something that non-fungible token. What's a fungible token? Liz, what is a fungible token versus a non-fungible token? Analogy. Putting you on the spot.
I was enjoying sitting back and listening. So non-fungible token, I haven't had to describe this one in a while. I think there's only one, right? There's just only one of it. So versus like Ethereum, which behaves more like a currency, and a non-fungible token or like an NFT, there's just one. It's more like art.
Right, and like I think how I've heard it described is a fungible token is something that a dollar here is a dollar there is a dollar there. The dollar has a value. The same dollar in Manhattan is you can exchange a dollar in Manhattan as you can in New York. Like an NFT would be almost like a baseball card, right? So somebody's determining the value of that based on. Nobody agrees necessarily on there's no fungibility. I can't take an NFT and be liquid and go and say that this NFT is always going to be worth $500. Ethereum, the price might change of it, but everybody's going to agree that whatever that price is, we can all exchange it for that same fungible nature of it. And I think that's where with NFTs and what you were talking about, Chad, what was so exciting about that first movement is where ETH could go up and Brandon can buy it at $7 and it can go up to $3,800. NFTs, they could that was a Wild West. It was a tribal. It was,
Yeah, that was equally pretty buzzy. You know, you remember some of the big ones, and the Bored Ape Yacht Club was like kind of the real big popular
Sure.
one that even hit mainstream, right? Where it was very speculative, you know, and the PFPs and all the you know, that whole world of art had a moment for sure.
right, where it could get so high where, you know, ETH wasn't worth $1 million, but some of these, you know, Bored Apes were worth 100 ETH.
100, yeah,
Right, so
it was
the
real big.
ceiling was like there was no limit on the ceiling. It was worth. So that's where the non-fungibility I think is interesting, where you can say that this piece, it's like a piece of artwork, right? And like,
Yeah, Liz described it aptly. And your dollar description of fungible is the best one, right? My dollar is the same as your dollar,
right,
You know, and non-fungible is something that is unique.
right. Well, I think we're at about an hour, and as our first panel session here with a general topic, I think we open it up to a few questions here, because I'm sick of myself talking at least. Do you guys in the audience, if you do have a question, and if you don't, think of one and get up on the mic anyway. We want to have you step over on that mic because I know that's the best spot. And when you do, speak into the mic unless nobody has any questions and everybody knows everything about blockchain. And when you get up, if you don't mind, saying your name and maybe where you're from.
My name's Troy. I grew up in Iowa, and I spent about half my time here. And in 2010, I downloaded Bitcoin and started mining on a CPU. So then what I want to know is how can I next year pay for the registration of this with the blockchain instead of a credit card? And who are the payment processors or the people that I need to talk to make that happen so that I can go write the back end?
Yeah, I guess.
An NFT conference that only takes US dollars and credit cards, right? Sounds super credible.
You said you wanted to register?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Well, the whatever it was, the $40 or whatever for the
Yeah.
Oh, you were asking about this event.
Yeah.
This
you wanna-
event.
yeah.
Yeah, to be able to
oh.
pay in crypto. I know it's always
Yep.
Your
Yep.
business.
So there's the fact that we're all sitting here right now is good enough for me. No, we will do this again next year, and next year it will be planned in less than 6 weeks. And by planned in less than 6 weeks, I mean we will incorporate a lot of things that we wanted to this year, and it was getting to the point where we wanted to get everybody together. We wanted to get a conversation going, put our egos aside, and say we're going to bring a lot of good people in. We had already had actually some people flying in. The backstory of NFT MSP and how it was founded will be a story that is told years from now, and it will be a good one. But it will not be one that's told tonight. And I am happy to take your Bitcoin, and I will trade you some US dollars for it. Because, yeah, right now it's all going into my bank account, and I'm getting very wealthy from this right now. So. Yeah, what's the next? Any other questions? You in the front. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Can you do that again? Let me ask you a question. You said you're the CEO of a blockchain company.
Testing. Okay. Yes, sir.
What were you doing before that, or how did you become the CEO of a blockchain?
We started out in a decentralized assisted token, an NFT project back in 2021. And then our developer actually had wanted to do something that was more decentralized again, so a blockchain. He wanted the low gas fees and also something that rewards developers. So we worked together on a team for that project, and then eventually became the blockchain that we're working on right now, which we launched back in December. So it's with a group of individuals that we already had a good relationship with before. But yeah, so our blockchain, it's a way to give back to developers, and it's something that's not reinventing the wheel, but kind of adding on to it, which I think is really important for this space. And the developers will get 40% of their fees right back to them by just developing on the chain. It's quick processing time of 3 seconds for the confirmations, 2,000 transactions per second, that kind of thing. So yeah, I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but thanks for putting me on the spot.
What's the name?
Mainnet Z.
And sorry, one more time.
The blockchain?
Yeah.
Mainnet Z. MAINNET-Z.
Got it.
What does that stand for?
Mainnet Z.
Got it. So you weren't planning on speaking. Let me ask you this. The speed, which you just listed off, it's fast. It's decentralized. It pays back developers. You get back 40%, you said?
Yes, they'll get 40% of the on-chain transaction fees. So any of the on-chain transactions for their dApps, their projects, whatever they're developing and they created, they'll be able to get 40% of those fees directly back to them.
What's been the biggest challenge of your chain since starting?
Onboarding, actually. It's one of those things where we are already listed on 8 centralized exchanges, but there was no bridge. So that's one thing that we've actually been developing is a two-way bridge. And onboarding people into the masses to get that liquidity to, I think, establish trust, because it is something new and revolutionary and people don't want to, risk it. So they like to be something, go into something that's already established. But right now we're currently doing that. And to put it also to show the trust too and where we're going, we've actually partnered with California State University Fullerton. We're actually going to be their blockchain of choice, and they're going to be developing, the students are going to be developing on Mainnet Z starting in January in their own DeFi curriculum. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we asked you, because getting more users does take speaking in front of a live audience and telling about your project, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming. Is there any other questions?
Hello.
This is our one of our organizers of the event. Let's introduce yourself.
I'm Matt Kramer from here in Minneapolis. It's awesome to have you all here talking to us today. Thanks for coming in from near and far, everybody. I was wondering, Chris, and the crew, a lot of you are speaking on other panels later this weekend. If you could talk a little bit about what other panels you might be excited about and what kind of fun people might be in store for.
I think that's a great question, Matt.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Can I field the first one?
Yes, please do.
So it won't be me, Matt, necessarily speaking, but I would be remiss to say that, when I first spoke, I didn't introduce myself as Chad Jamrozy. I'm here with, I do some work for a law firm called Quantum Lex, and Quantum Lex is a sponsor of the event this weekend. Quantum Lex is a small law firm here in Minnesota that has a kind of a bent towards tech, startup, web3, that in that space. And one of the other attorneys, John Hayden, will be speaking tomorrow on a panel that he'll be a little bit more of an intelligent conversation. I don't remember exactly what his topic is tomorrow, but I'm sure it's something really heady like IP or something. But
tax, business, and finance.
There we go.
3 p.m.
Yeah. So Hayden will be great to speak to that. But they're a small firm doing some really great work and are very excited to be involved in this community and to be involved with you guys.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up, Matt. And yeah, Quantum Lex, just like a lot of anything new spaces, it's the people that jump in and they're not the fair weather fans, right? They're not the people that come late to the party after they see all the money's been made. Quantum Lex is, I mean, at least, and I say this with all the street cred respect in the world, is Quantum Lex are the scrappers coming in and seeing that it's not going to be easy necessarily. This is a new space. How do you navigate starting a company that's crypto based? These aren't questions that everybody knows the answers to, especially in the legal world where there's a lot of uncertainty and not a lot of regulatory clarity yet in the space. So mad respect to anybody in any company and group that's coming in there and saying, we don't know exactly where this is going to go, but we're going to be the guys that are going to help you figure it out. And those are the type of people I think that really represent what the ethos of the Web3 space is. And so thank you to Quantum Lex. You guys were some of the first and the most early. I know when Matt introduced you to us and really brought us all together. Matt Kramer over here. that was a big one. So tomorrow we've got, speaking of legal, we've got intellectual property, copyright AI. That's actually with Merchant Gould, a large patent law firm here in Minneapolis. They're speaking at 10 a.m. I think that's going to be really interesting because it's going to talk not just about boring legal stuff, but how artists can protect their work in this new digital age, where it's going to be as easier than ever to take somebody's work, but also with blockchain, we can make it not just harder than ever, but also, I think, create a world where we don't have to worry about people getting sued or stolen, and we can kind of work it in a way where it's easier to collaborate and to say, hey, you just showed this person my art, thanks, here's a tip. And I just created this art, and now I get to, essentially bring value to others by them bringing value to me by distributing it, rather than saying, I'm going to take this piece and go make my money off it. It's like, I'm going to be your producer, and you're going to be my salesperson, and you're going to be my biggest fan, and kind of bring everybody together. And I think that talk will be really interesting to see, just from the real legal rights and around it. And hopefully a lot of people join that one. 3 p.m., that's the business, tax, and finance. And I'm looking through here because we've shuffled these panels a bit. And then tomorrow night actually is one I'm really excited for as well. The societal impact of blockchain. Brandon touched on it a little bit. This idea of, essential countries or nation states, or, around these chains themselves, impacts outside of finance, impacts outside of NFTs in blockchain. So that one's a big one. Probably the one I'm the most excited about, if I'm being honest, and not to be partial, but the gaming, the Web3 gaming panel. We've got Unreal Kingdoms. We've actually got one of the founders and a few of the members here in our audience, and we'll be speaking on that panel. Web3 gaming is at 10:30 on Sunday morning. And then we've got, what do we got here? NFT marketing, strategies for success in the digital marketplace. Sounds super lame and boring when I say it like that. Strategies for success in the digital marketplace. NFT marketing, it's big, and it's, I think, when people start to see what it's doing with DropLink, actually is here on the panel, they're going to show really how Web3 marketing is going to destroy traditional, or we'll call it unconventional right now, I was saying, but social media marketing has been very effective. You can get a lot of reaches on Facebook for very little money, and other sort of social media companies. Web3 marketing, from what I can tell, having been in a lot of different businesses in marketing and seeing how you get money spent in guerrilla marketing and how you track ad dollars and all that stuff, I think Web3 marketing is actually one of the most interesting utilities the space has yet to bring, and I think we've barely touched the surface as to how marketing can be used in Web3. And the last one is, and actually, yeah, the timing is a little wrong there. That one's actually the last one. But before that, we've got music and Web3. And frankly, that's probably the most exciting thing outside of blockchain here in NFT MSP is music. We've got actually, tonight we have Carnage the Executioner about to go on. Tomorrow, we've got Violetta, we've got Nerdy, we've got Keith Murray. And on Sunday, we have Sophia Eris, Lizzo's DJ. I should say just Sophia Eris. We have, what else do we have on Sunday? Oh, Spotty Wi-Fi. Spotty Wi-Fi. He came into town, and a couple others. I can't even think of them right now because my brain is mush. But the Music Fest here for the next 3 days is for $40. Whole weekends, GA, everything you can get. And for $100 VIP, you get access to the party tonight, the Losties party, Long Lost. And tomorrow night, the Monsters and Villains Ball, which is part of my project, as well as the Order of the Egonauts. I have to give a shout out to my shirt. So we look forward to everybody coming tomorrow and partying tonight. And thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Chad. Quantum Lex. profit for purpose. Next time. Liz will be on a few. I'll get it right. And Minnesota Blockchain. Thanks, you guys, for coming. And we got one more question from somebody who calls himself Code.
What's up, guys? So my biggest question that I always ask everybody is not financial advice, but what's your next 10x call?
That is hilarious.
That is so. Next 10x call for those that don't know what that means. What is so you're asking what is the what coin is going to do 10 times its value in the next bull run? We'll call it by March of next year.
We'll say bull run. Yeah,
bull run.
We'll go through March 15th.
Yeah,
March 15th. I like it. I like it.
I don't think it's out yet, but all the people I listen to and read kind of be in the VC world, Monad is the thing that people are talking the most about. There's some real serious people involved in that project, and I don't know exactly why. I don't know a lot about Monad, but when you know, there's things that I listen to and read pretty weekly, and there's some heavy hitters that are talking about Monad quite a bit. So if I was feet to the fire, I'm going to say Monad is the one. It's got that vibe of like when Solana came out and you heard about all the people getting it at a nickel. You know, and it was like all the people got, and then it had that's run. It's still, what, $1.50, $1.60 right now, but Monad would be the one. I don't know, Liz, have you heard much about it?
Is it like the second largest trading pool on Ethereum? Is that Monad or is that something else?
Monad's it's a layer one. It's a new one coming out. Yeah, it's new, but there's heavy hitters around it. I don't know, Brandon.
How big's your bag, Chad?
What's that? Well, I am not I am not in those circles. But if you're a VC, these are the VCs talking, right?
Okay.
So those are the folks that are in early. You know, I don't, like I said, I don't think it's out to market yet, but that's the one I'm keeping an eye on for sure.
And we're talking tokens right now, Cole, or we're talking NFTs?
I'll take either.
All right.
NFTs, I want some good news in the NFT space. I want to know gaming is what I'm really holding out for.
Well, good gaming, because blockchain gaming has been kind of like the
promise,
the perpetual
it's
promise
been an overpromise,
NFTs,
under-deliver scenario for quite some time.
Well, I mean, I grew up playing, I had a Nintendo when I was 5. I was born in 81, and I've loved video games. I always have. And so when blockchain gaming came out, it was exciting, except you had to like go through all this stuff to like play a freaking game, and it's like, no, I've got a PlayStation, I've got an Xbox, I've got a computer. I want to play it on that. I don't want to have to log in and chase after some token that is essentially just pumping my own bag and with everybody else while we all pretend like we're really excited about this game, and really we're just trying to keep everybody in the user base. But I would say that I think the game that's able to actually launch themselves on a major platform like PlayStation or Xbox,
that'll be huge.
It's everything, because now you're getting to the normies, and really the idea with blockchain, just like the early days of the internet, nobody knows we use TCP protocol, right? Nobody cares about that. With video games, nobody cares if Activision is a publisher or who it is.
Yeah.
With blockchain video games, I feel like the game that is able to actually deliver on a platform, and you can play a game just like you want to, and you don't even have to own the NFTs or know anything about blockchain, and you're playing an awesome game in a massive multiplayer online role-playing game or something, and you don't even know it's blockchain. But if you do know it's blockchain and you can actually play, and then when you spend your money on the skin or this weapon or this armor, and you're not giving your money to Roblox or or whatever, you're actually getting it back, or you're getting it, you can incentivize people. That to me is a game that I would that would be a game I would look at as maybe a 10x, something like Unreal Kingdoms.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. What about you, Liz?
I'm going to go with, I have a few that are like kind of all in the same periphery. So Sony just announced their Sonium, if you haven't watched or followed that. And so Astar Network, which is a Japanese team, helped build out Sony's blockchain infrastructure, and they have a token. It's on Polkadot, so it's a different infrastructure than Ethereum. So I would maybe pay attention to Astar. I don't know if it'll move because of them. And then there's the former C-suite person from Sony who launched Jasmy. And so Jasmy, I heard about, this is so funny. I was in
That's mine. Jasmine's
Jasmine.
mine. Yeah.
So I was at Bitcoin Nashville, and I'm in an Uber, and the Uber driver told me about Jasmine, and I was like, "What? What's Jasmine?" And I bought it in the car, and like we're driving to the
So
to the conference.
Love it.
That literally Jasmine's, because it's the CO and what they're
from
doing.
Sony.
Yes.
Yeah, so something with like in the Sony verse, like Sonium, Astar, Jasmine, something like that.
I
It's like
love
I would think is might move.
Well, it's like privacy. It's storing privacy data on people, and it's out of Japan. I mean, they're calling it the Japanese Bitcoin, and I think they have laws going through Parliament right now that's going to allow VCs to invest in crypto for the first time. And once that happens, Jasmine's kind of at the front of the list. Okay, well then.
Oh, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Cabby in Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brandon, Minnesota Blockchain. Who does Minnesota Blockchain, the nonprofit, endorse as a token worth 10x?
Yeah.
You couldn't have asked a better question for me to not answer.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. I asked it in a way that made it impossible.
Like we're a nonprofit. You might as well have asked who does Minnesota Blockchain endorse for president? That would have been another good one for me to not answer.
Right. What were you investing when you were talking about how the story you were telling earlier about it's addictive, right? Like.
Oh, I
Crypto.
mean, yeah.
What
I saw a funny meme. I saw a funny meme on back when it was Twitter. Like, there's a kid who has like 8,000 merit badges, and it's like, don't have this be your crypto investing. And that was me. I mean, I must have held like, and I was geeking out on it, man. Like it was a real addiction thing. I had, and I was like, oh, I'm monitoring it. I'm being responsible. And I did chart it all out, but like in an autistic kind of obsessive way. But I had like, I don't know, 25, 30, I don't know, different tokens that I was holding at the time. And I mean, a lot of them now, I have no idea what they're doing. I've stopped. I've kind of like if there's a 12-step group for it, I could have gone to that, and I, I didn't. There was none. But I've largely done kind of the abstinence approach, where I have no idea what the new meme coins are anymore. I've stopped reading that on Twitter. There's one project I follow that I really like. Is Internet Computer. A long time ago, Vitalik thought that was a promising project back in like 2017 or something like that. And from what I can tell, they've built slow and with intention and success. And every time I see them at an event online speaking, these guys know their stuff. And it seems to really work. They've got a social media. I don't mean they have social media accounts. I mean, they literally have a social media built on their platform that works. That's on chain, right? And the integration with AI, that's a whole other aspect of blockchain. If I may, one thing I wanted to say about blockchain, and it's an interesting sell in the U.S. because a lot of the benefits it serves doesn't really serve Americans, because we don't have 20%, 50% inflation, right? We don't need to send money, across the country to our grandma and try to do it cheaply. I can do that through Venmo or Zelle through Wells Fargo. We have the infrastructure. We have a fairly steady currency. The issue is, so the benefits of blockchain are much more subtle, right? And yet they are amazing, right? If in kind of a background kind of way. So like blockchain's use in AI is significant because right now we don't know what's real. How do we know it's real? Like if you watch a video of Trump, I saw these amazing photos of Trump and Kamala on a honeymoon, and they were so beautiful. And so it's just nice to know that, the two.
They're really getting along, actually.
The two opponents vying for president are now apparently going to elope and have an affair or something. It's so nice. We don't know what's real, but blockchain can help with verification with an NFT, right? Oh, that is like legit. That's a legit source. That kind of verification. It's kind of boring, but it's so crucial with the rise of AI. So the way blockchain blends with these other technologies is crucial. All these what we call exponential technologies, because they're just going to ramp us up in these ways that are just nuts. And it's like, hold on. And the funny, or not funny, the difficult part of the way these technologies accelerate is that there's a correlation, and that's the other work I do with my documentary work and the work that you might see on the street, which is that more people are falling behind, more people are having a hard time paying their bills. So there's this weird parallel in society where we've got these exponential technologies, people are getting rich, investing in the right token, buying their Lambos or whatever, and at the same time we have 10 cities popping up and people hooked on fentanyl. It's like, whoa. So it is a strange time, and blockchain has a big role to play, both in terms of causing the disruption, frankly, but also I think in helping humanity through projects like yours, through knowing what's real, through giving opportunities to more people to make money, right? Like, think of a video game where right now, if I have an asset in a video game, oh, I just earned this new, I just got this new sword or this new weapon. Well, in time, video games may adopt web3, blockchain, cryptocurrency kinds of things, and then you would be able to sell that to other gamers within the ecosystem, right? So you could actually make money off of your gaming, which you can kind of do now, but maybe in a web3 world that would be decentralized, and you get all the money and not have to give a bunch of it to Ubisoft or whatever. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling here, but
That's okay. That's that poster right there, actually, I think. What you're describing. It's this side right
so
there.
anyway, to answer your question though, dude, I like Internet Computer.
Yeah. Oh, and 6079.ai, which is a sponsor, and actually I just realized we're not on the poster. But 6079.ai is something everybody should look into here. I'll close it out by saying that they are one of the nonprofits. I think Quirky's, Poppy from Quirky's actually turned me onto that 3-4 months ago, and they weren't able to make it this time, but look into that. Look into 6079.ai, because they are doing the good work right now in AI to decentralize it. And I think with all of the fear with what AI can do and all the potential of it, obviously, as well. But decentralization of AI is probably as critical as anything right now, because if we don't get a handle on that, well, we've all seen the movies. And it's coming. Thanks, guys.